Homecoming weekend for the Toledo Rockets as we welcome in a former homecoming king, Mike Robinson.
Well, thanks for having me.
What year were you crowned homecoming king?
You want me to date myself? But I will tell you, back in 2006, the year of the UT merger with the Health Campus.
All right, so the Rockets taking on Miami. They're coming off that week off. Mike Rob, did they use that week off well? I suppose we'll learn that answer for real on Saturday, but going into this game, do you feel like they've learned something from this week off?
Honestly, I think they have. I think this is just one of those weeks where you look at Jason Candle and he looks at his team and he tells them, you know, we aren't as good as we thought we were. We got to continue to get better and keep working because your goals are still in front of you. And I feel like that's the mentality that they take as soon as they got on that plane and all the way up until we go to homecoming week, because this is a huge week. Bringing in the former MAC champs, you played this team, you will be playing them 3 times in the past year. So it's a huge game. You know your opponent, and you got to get this victory.
You said you got to get better, yet Toledo is leading the MAC in scoring offense and scoring defense. So by that metric, they're doing pretty well. But it's going to get a little bit more intense, as you touched upon. Third time, about 13 months, Toledo and Miami have gone head-to-head, which is odd because they hadn't played each other in 12 years prior to that.
Yeah, you know, they just can't get enough of each other now. This rivalry is growing, and you know what? And we need this here in the MAC, you know, or maybe the Mountain West. I don't know what's going on. But, you know, this one right here, this game, setting the tone is everything. You know, getting back into the MAC play and having a homecoming game with this team here, it only adds up the intensity that the Rockets actually need. You know, that offense, they were slow to go in that second half of that game after that weather delay, but more importantly, they got to have a hot start because that's when the Rockets play well.
You mentioned Mountain West. Last week, the Mountain West informed the Mid-American Conference they're interested in poaching Northern Illinois and Toledo as football-only members, as the Mountain West has lost several schools to the resurgent Pac-12. We don't know how this is all going to play out, but this is what we do know, Mike Rob. Brian Blair, the Toledo athletic director, very forward-thinking. He's going to explore every opportunity to make Toledo bigger and better.
You know what? And I think it's the right idea. You know, when you look at the Mountain West and you look at this conference, you know, obviously there's some high-quality teams in there, and there's also a lot of travel too. So if the money's good, I feel like Brian Blair is going to be all over that. But more importantly, I feel like this athletic department is more focused on, you know, not just how good their teams are, because we know they got good football teams. They've been winning the Cartwright Award, you know, how many times in a row? Every year now that Brian Blair has been here. But more importantly, it's about enrollment too. So I feel like if the athletics play in a higher conference, you get Saturday games back, more people running back to campus, and wanting to be involved with that. So it's a double-edged sword, and will the MAC go for it is the other thing.
Well, yeah, because I can't imagine the MAC's going to say, oh, yeah, go ahead. You go play football with those guys. You can play the rest of the sports with us. I don't think that's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't a gambit by the Mountain West to open up a broader conversation to do maybe a full-fledged merger with the MAC, or maybe even do like a scheduling alliance with the MAC, something to give a lifeboat to the Mountain West Conference.
I think that'd be huge. You know, although we love our action on weekday nights, you know, I think it'd be great to have some football games on Saturday nights later into the year. You know, and mainly for the crowd and for the fans. You know, bringing a UNLV or having the Rockets travel to Hawaii or having those different teams, you know, grace the state of Ohio where most of the MAC teams are. I think it's important to, you know, to see if that's a possibility that can expand this conference, because we got good teams, but we can always be better.
Rockets are 3-1. Miami 1-3, and their one win came last week when they needed a field goal as regulation expired to force overtime, and then they beat UMass in overtime. So Miami team, they played a tough schedule, but this is not the same type of Miami team that perhaps we've gotten used to, although they use those tough non-conference games to get better once they get into the MAC.
Yeah, you know what happens when the MAC comes. Everybody is fair game, you know. And these two teams, like I said, in the past 13 months, they're very, very familiar with each other. And honestly, the Rockets got the best of them on the road, you know, in a big game for Miami of Ohio. They were having a big celebration, and they're going to come to Toledo looking to mess up the party here. So the Rockets got to make sure they continue to play great defense, because Miami's only scored 50 points so far this season, you know, and if our defense continue to stay on the path they are, giving up only 19 points per game, then that means we are in for a good football game. But can the offense get going, and are we going to stay committed to the ground game? There's a couple things that I'm looking forward to.
And the other question is, how healthy is that offensive line going to be for the Rockets?
Yeah, you know, the offensive line is young. They're banged up a little bit, but I think that week off is where you got a lot of guys back healthy, and this is a key week for the offensive line. Although, you know, I think that, you know, having young guys on the field sometimes can hinder you, but it also builds that confidence, because now once you got that first start in, that second start, being a redshirt freshman, I think now it gets easier. The game starts slowing down, and you only get better as the weeks go on. So in my opinion, the Rockets are building a strong foundation with a very young offensive line.
Rockets Miami homecoming, and don't forget you can watch the homecoming parade live on BCSN Saturday morning. I want to thank our guest Mike Robb from the Rocket Radio Network for joining us. You're king.